Welcome back to Freedom Algo. So today we're going to look at the 2000 tick ES chart, look at the different scalp trade setups that came through, and how this thing evolved. So at first it looked like a possible range, and originally I had a range drawn that was kind of through something like this, and then it came down eventually to here. And so this first trade setup that I posted was basically just a failed breakout and sort of like a triple test. Now, if you took this one, you took an inside bar, not the best setup right there, so you would have gotten stopped out if you tried to go long too early. But after it rejected here, stopped everyone out, it just looked like a trap, like a failed breakout trap. So that's a nice, decent one. Then we kind of form this little downtrend, close outside. There's a possible trend that was going to form there. And so when this big red bar came and went below that, it basically was like a failed second entry long. So you could see this pullback first entry, pullback second entry long that then failed on this huge bar. So if you went short below this, that was a good one. The reason it's marked green is just because it's a pretty large bar for the size that they were earlier. So you'd have to have a pretty big stop loss. And then it came down and there's a first entry, second entry short. So that's a nice decent one right there. It confirms, this trend line is now pretty much confirmed off of that, right off the EMA. Just a really solid setup there, because at this point you had to consider there's a wider channel in play. This channel then comes down. You get a close outside here. Not the most convincing, but it does break down, and then you come up and you make another leg down, which I think this is the more convincing close outside. I think this one, if you really look at this channel, it might have been more like this, and that wasn't actually a close outside, and that this is the true close outside. So that's something to consider there. But in any case, it breaks down, and then you work lower, you get this huge leg down, and it just keeps going a bit. And then down here, you kind of had a range play. This is sort of like a lower high triple test. And it's also a first entry, second entry long that fails. So it's a failed second entry long inside of a range off of basically a triple test. So that's a decent one. I don't have it drawn there, but you can clearly see it if you put your line there, that there's a possible, that's a nice little setup. Then it comes down, and what I had here was originally I had this drawn as a range, and I had a line down here, and what I basically saw this as, the reason that this range was originally smaller, and I stretched it out after, but this is just a breakout pullback short on a really bearish candle, so that's another good one. Comes down, gives you a higher low here, but not a good setup, so you don't really get a trade there. And then you form this uptrend. There's just really no good setups in here, unfortunately, until you get this close outside, and then it breaks down, and then it kind of turns into a bit of another range. Now, after the close outside, you are looking for a new high on this up channel, and so you get it here, and then you get this one, which is kind of almost like a second channel. It's like a close outside, two legs to a new high, close outside. That's a nice, decent short right there. So I like that one. And then from here, it looks like we have a first entry. This is actually a second entry long that looks like it could fail here probably below this bar is where everyone's stops are. But you have to consider there seems to be some sort of a possible support here. And so there could be kind of like a micro range forming. So I'm not necessarily saying that you would take this failed second entry, because you'd have to have a stop loss pretty high. So I don't really like that one. But it's possible that this could turn into a failure and break down again, try to test the lows or something. Or we could just range for a while. I don't see much else happening here, so I'm going to leave it there. But this also could turn into a first entry, second entry. You could get a higher low on a second entry long off of this low here. And then you have a 1, 2, 3, 4, basically 5 tests of this level. So there could be a possible long that sets up here. And so you just kind of have to see how it plays out. And I will talk to you soon.